There. My name is Suze, and I work with women to help them find balance between their internal masculine and feminine energies so that they can have lives that feel really emotionally fulfilling, full of love and connection. So, I just finished doing a video on the 5 ways that we sabotage intimacy, and so I kind of want to follow this one up and talk about the 5 ways that we avoid intimacy, which again, they kind of overlap. Avoidance and sabotage, they're very similar energies, um, but I want to go really deeply into this because the idea of intimacy is something, intimacy and value are two core things that I'm really feeling drawn to. Spirit is really telling me to go deeply into these things and give deeper meaning to these words and show how incredibly transformative and impactful and powerful and life changing these things can be when you start plugging them into your own life and recognizing these things with yourself. Okay? So, if you haven't seen my other video about the 5 ways we sabotage intimacy, I really recommend you see that one as well. And then we're going to talk about this one. And I have my notes today because any of you who follow me, you know, I really try to keep my videos 15 minutes and below, but having 5 things to talk about and feel like I'm fully explaining them in 15 minutes can be a challenge. So I have my notes with me today. So the first one may actually surprise you. 5 ways that we avoid intimacy. Number 1 is sex. And you may say, wait a second, isn't that intimacy? Right? Well, you know, someone wise once told me many years ago, it's not what you do or don't do that makes it right or wrong. It's the energy or the intention behind it. It's the energy or the intention behind it. And as I like to say all the time with my clients when we're talking about energy, it's always the thing behind the thing. It's always the thing behind the thing. It's never the thing. It's never the obvious thing that's flashing in front of your face. It's the thing behind the thing that is actually the thing. So this is what that sounded really crazy, but it's so true. If you start looking at your life that way, it is everything. Okay. So here, let's unravel this a little bit, and I'm going to refer to this as physical intimacy because I have a little bit of a fear that putting this out and onto public places, I don't want it to have any issues with using that word. Okay, so I'm going to say physical intimacy, but you know what I mean. This is actually a way to avoid intimacy because many people use this only in the physical way. They think of it only in the physical. They think of it hormonally. Hormonally. Are you even aware, particularly for women, are you aware of your hormones and your cycles enough that you recognize when you want physical intimacy and it's only because your hormones are telling you to? That's survival and that's animalistic and that's very low chakra, which is, yes, necessary, and I'm not shaming it. No, it is part of who we are and it needs to be integrated, but it needs to be expanded into something far greater than just a physical, animalistic urge and then a sense of gratification or temporary satisfaction or release on the other end of it. And the majority of people only see it in that way. Validation, gratification, and release. And yes, those are valid. They are what adds to the pleasure of it. But if you're only operating in that space, you're actually avoiding real intimacy. I think we've all heard it said, intimacy is into me see, which is radical vulnerability, which is emotions, my heart space, how I feel, what I value, what am I insecure about, what am I confident about, what am I struggling with, what am I proud of myself for accomplishing, what do I struggle with? That's real intimacy, of learning to build a life of two people working together to help each other become the best version of each other that they can be, and let go, release those old things that are holding you back from your highest self. That is real intimacy. So if you're only having the physical strictly only in the physical, you're avoiding the reality of what it actually was intended to be. It's never the thing, it's the thing behind the thing. Emotional intimacy is then therefore shown in physical intimacy. That's point number one for ways we avoid intimacy. Number two, conflict. I've talked about conflict, right? I have 2 videos out there about conflict and intimacy. So you may want to cross-reference those videos. I did a part 1 and a part 2 of conflict and intimacy. Conflict is a great way to avoid intimacy because if you get into an egoic conflict battle, then it's a matter of one person trying to be right or one person shaming the other person, or you already know how most fights go down and how ugly they are and how much they hurt and how exhausting and emotionally draining they are and disappointing and frustrating, right? If you're having conflict with that kind of stuff going on, again, you're avoiding intimacy because intimacy is humble because it comes from the heart space. It has no fear of being judged. It wants connection and closeness. It wants to grow with the other person. It doesn't want to project its shadow junk on the other person. It wants to welcome both people in together in intimacy, It's going through to the other side. So again, it's the thing behind the thing. Conflict can go both ways. Conflict can be a gateway, a door, a portal into intimacy if you go through it with from the heart space, or conflict can be a way to avoid intimacy if it's coming from the head, the ego space of needing to be right, needing to prove a point, needing to not feel bad about yourself or whatever. I don't even know. I don't even know at this point. Conflict can either be the death of intimacy or it can bring new life into the intimacy and go into a deeper depth of intimacy. All right, number 3, leaky energy. Leaky energy. This one really reflects on the other video I did about sabotaging. 5 ways we sabotage intimacy. Leaky energy is when you don't have boundaries with yourself. And so your energy is scattered. Another way to say it would be scattered too, kind of a close cousin. You're leaking your energy elsewhere and you're scattered with your energy instead of being concise and aware and present and focused. When you are investing your energy into something, you are all in it and you block yourself from outside distractions. You put boundaries with yourself around where else am I investing my energy. This is where I'm investing my energy. I'm putting all my energy here, and once I'm done with this, I will move on to the next little pocket that needs my attention, that needs my energy. Leaky energy will destroy intimacy because it's a lack of presence. And that's what I talked about too. Again, lack of presence in the 5 ways we sabotage intimacy. So you see how they kind of overlap a little bit. Number 4, ways we avoid intimacy. Number 4 is blame. Now, of course, this goes back to the idea of conflict, right? But this can also happen mentally without the other person even knowing about it. So it's even more than just conflict. If you're blaming the other person, you're not taking responsibility for yourself and what you may have done or may not have done that contributed to the current situation that you're unhappy with or that they're unhappy with. If there's a problem in your relationship and they're blaming the other person and you're not taking responsibility, you're avoiding intimacy with yourself, and then therefore you're avoiding intimacy in the partnership. Because again, what is intimacy? Emotional intimacy two people being totally vulnerable and transparent with each other so that they can help each other, heal each other, and move each other into their highest versions of self. So if you're blaming someone else, you're judging, which is clearly never going to get the other person up into their higher self, or you for that matter. And if you're blaming, you're avoiding the fact that a relationship is two people. So if there's a problem in the middle between the two people, both people are at fault. Both people must claim responsibility for how they individually contributed to the collective problem in the middle. The problem is the problem, not the people. So the more you claim responsibility for your part of it, then you can see the actual problem in the middle and work forward to have a solution to move into a more intimate space of love and deeper connection and bonding. Because when each person claims responsibility, then you're actually able to have effective communication to see what the actual problem is, to then resolve the problem in a healthy way and move forward into healing and growth together. So number 4 is blame. Number 5, people pleasing. If you are people pleasing, you're being 100% inauthentic because you're more scared of what someone else is going to think, or you're more concerned with getting a particular end result. So you're manipulating yourself to do, be, or say whatever you need to do right here, right now, to get yourself the end result that you think is the most important, instead of being authentically you in the scenario, in the situation, instead of being authentically you. It's not about the outcome necessarily. It's more about you showing up in your fullest authentic expression and working the problem out from there. People pleasing will 100% sabotage intimacy, because if you are not being authentic to who you are, what you need, what you value, what your principles are, if you're not speaking from that place, speaking, doing, thinking, whatever it is, from that space, you're not being intimate with yourself. You're not being intimate and real in the relationship, and therefore the intimacy between you and that other person will 100% not be happening. Not be happening. The people pleasing has to go. All that right there too, by the way, is childhood stuff. So look at dynamics with your mother, with your father in childhood, your caretakers. How did you think you had to be as a child to survive the emotional environment of your childhood? Do some digging in that. That's just a tiny little drop in the bucket of all of that agenda. Do some work around the dynamics of the emotional environment in your home that you grew up with, and how you as a child had to mold yourself to survive the emotional environment. Are you doing that now as an adult? Then you're people pleasing, you're not being authentic, you're not being intimate with your true self and your needs and your values and your principles. Therefore, you are not going to have intimacy outside of you in your partnership with your person. I hope this video helped. Those are my 5 ways we avoid intimacy. Please subscribe. I can't talk anymore. Please subscribe and drop a comment if you found value in this to add support to my channel and to me. And I love hearing from you guys. Thank you to those who have been commenting. Have a beautiful day.